atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a Kamen rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to a brand new episode of Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me as always, my co-host.
Hello, everyone. I am Rex.
And we are back, little late, but we are back with our second episode of the February month.
Yes.
Now, it's been a little bit of a delay. This has actually kind of been a difficult episode to record because of technology problems. But after like 3 weeks of like me trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing, I finally got my act together and got it figured out.
But was it worth it? That is the question.
To be or not to be? We will find out.
Jesus.
So, I guess we can go ahead and jump in here and be like, hey, what's up, Rex? Like, how have you been? We haven't talked in a little while.
Yeah, no, I've been pretty good for the most part. I've actually been somewhat busy in life, crazily enough.
Crazily? That's a new word. Crazily.
Yes, my new invention.
Yes.
A word that existed.
So, like, anything, like, cool, like, busy-wise, or?
Mostly just me working out at the gym. Having a good
you're
time
becoming
working.
a gym guy.
Yes.
You're going to be that buff Godzilla fan that's, like, screaming into a microphone one day.
Oh, I wish.
But you're also going to be bald.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be that buff dude that's bald, and you're, like, screaming into the microphone on how somebody's wrong with their opinion.
Yeah, well, sacrifices have to be made sometimes.
Yes, you're going to officially become the true Joe Rogan of the Godzilla community.
Oh, dear God. I thought that was your title.
I mean, sure, like, but I'm not going to do that. Though I do need to go to the gym. Need to go to the gym.
Good times, particularly if you have buddies.
Yeah, see, I don't.
Oh, well, get them on the grind set.
My one friend who we had talked about going to the gym, he was like, I already work out. It's my job. And I was like, well, you can still come to the gym, right? And he was like, no, I am not going to the gym.
Nice.
I was like, you sure? Like, you just wanna go with me? And he was like, no. So I think I might just buy myself like a bench press set and all that, and just do it at home to save myself public interaction.
I mean, who are you going to interact with other than the gym staff? I mean,
but like, it's weird. Like, I don't like the idea of people watching me do squats.
No, don't worry. No one's going to really be paying attention to you.
I pay attention when I go to the community center and look at people working out.
Okay, then. That's you. But generally, even if someone does watch you, they're probably watching more for your safety because you're new and probably inexperienced.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's just something about that like I'm just going solely for legs. Like,
the highly acclaimed leg day.
Yes. But besides the gym, what else have you been doing?
Not too much. I went to a beach, an alleged beach, the other day, and got to hold a carpet python, which was pretty cool. Saw a little turtle that I kept calling Gamera.
As kaiju fans do.
Yeah. Yeah, not too much. Outside of that, I've watched a couple movies here and there.
Any tokusatsu?
Yes, actually. Last time, I believe, I said I was watching Kamen Rider, and just today, I've gotten up to episode 72. So
that's almost 3/4 of the way through.
I've got 26 episodes remaining.
You're almost there.
Yep, and I watched the Kamen Rider vs. Baxter Hell movie as well.
Yes, you talked about that last time.
No, I talked about Kamen Rider vs. Shocker last time.
Oh! Wait, there's two movies?
Technically there's 3, but like the first one is just like a theatrical like release of episode 13.
Mm-hmm.
But these 2 were like original productions. And I gotta say, the 4K transfers for both of them look absolutely gorgeous.
Huh.
Like, better, like, I'd argue they look better than most of the 4K Godzilla transfers.
Dang, that's a pretty, like, Ghidorah and, like, 54 look stunning.
Mothra vs. Godzilla does too as well.
Oh, when Toho was doing Godzilla 4K transfers. That was the good time.
Yeah. But yeah, outside of that, I watched Japan Sinks, the original 1973 movie, sorry. Very, very well-directed feature with some pretty beautiful shots at certain points and really good acting from, like, Kamen Rider star Hiroshi Fujioka and a few other actors.
Now, wasn't that a Fukuda film?
No. I was looking it up earlier, and apparently it's Shiro Moritani who directed it.
Okay.
And I'm not really familiar with any of his other work.
Likewise.
But if this is any indication, he's a fairly talented director, I'd say.
See, I've always wanted to watch that one. That one and, like, The Last War. Like, those...
Yeah, I need to watch
disaster... Those disaster films of the 1970s, like, that Toho put out.
Well, Last War was 60s, to be fair.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. But Submersion of Japan... Like, there's a lot of those, like, early 70s, like, Toku films that Toho made that were, like, kind of left field, like, Blood Type Blue and Espy especially come to mind as well.
Yeah.
That I'd love to watch those just to see what Toho was doing. I mean, obviously they did like the Bloodthirsty trilogy, which, you know, I'd love to cover those one day because they're very interesting. Like they're a very interesting set of films.
I'm still yet to see them actually. All I know is that like the main vampire in one or two of them is Go's best friend from Return of Ultraman. He
is. That is true.
And wasn't he in one of the Mechagodzilla films? Like one of
Yes. He was. I think it was the first one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember him in one of them. I definitely do. But admittedly, it's been a while since I've seen 74.
Yeah, I watched 75 more than I watched 74.
Fair enough.
I can't get enough of Terror, you know?
I mean, fair enough, honestly. It's a pretty great film.
But so would you recommend Submersion of Japan to anybody?
Oh, definitely. For me, it's a little long. It's not something I'd actively want to rewatch, but in spite of that, I still think it's a very well put together film, you know?
Mm-hmm. Now you just got to watch the TV show and the Higuchi remake.
There's the Higuchi remake, the TV show, the most recent TV show with Shinoguri and Jun Kunimura, and then there's the anime from the director of Devilman Crybaby.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh, I didn't know about that one. And I mean, if you want to be a true Submersion of Japan fan,
you read the book.
You got to. Well, that and you got to watch the Kawasaki parody film, The World Sinks Except Japan. Yes. With a cameo by Hitler.
Excuse me, what?
A lot of Kawasaki's films have like dictators and like awful characters that are in like real life and history that just appear. Hitler is in one of them.
Did
Two
Kawasaki
of them.
direct Monster X Strikes Back?
Yes,
Okay,
he did.
okay. Because I was going to say, that just reminds me of, like,
Kim Jong-un.
yeah, the North Korean just appearing in that film.
Yes. Kawasaki loves doing that for some reason.
Oh my god, Lily Frankie's in that Monster X Strikes Back.
What was she in?
He was in Shoplifters, which is,
Oh,
like, I watched that recently as well. That was really good.
I don't remember. I feel like you might have mentioned that with Cutie Honey, but I don't
I only
remember.
watched this, like a week ago today, actually.
Gotcha. So you must have messaged me or posted something. Because I know you had mentioned.
In the Discord, probably.
Probably, yeah. Because I remember you posting or something saying you were watching it.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched a decent bit of films. Not as much as, like, the last few months, but, like, I've been busy.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of relate. I've been working a lot, like a lot more than normal. I haven't had right now I only get 1 day off a week, which sucks when you do like 9-10 hour days. And then you still have to like sleep, which for me, sleep has not existed. After this recording, I will be up for 30 hours. Like, after this, I will have to stay up, and I will be up for 30 hours, and it will be awful. But,
well, at least you get a decent pay, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with my paychecks.
You sound like you're going to say it could be better.
It could be better. After today, I kind of wish I got paid more. I was really, really grumpy today. There's an alternate timeline. What?
I wonder if that has something to do with your sleep schedule.
It had to do with the sleep schedule, the fact that after 6 p.m., we closed at 11. After 6 p.m., I had nobody helping me, so I had to run the entire department by myself with, like, people pulling me left and right for 6 hours, essentially. Like, it sucked. It was awful. There's an alternate timeline where, like, I was ready to go, like, right after work, and I did this recording as a grumpy individual. Very grumpy.
That'll be hilarious.
Yeah. And then we'd have a whole nother rant about my awful day.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say. These things happen.
Yes, and then I'd lose my voice again.
God damn it. I've been getting close to not saying that anymore.
Yeah, well, you know, these things, they happen.
Don't infect me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It happens. But, no, I've been working a lot, too. I've been trying to get together, like, working on, like, balancing out my life, which is kind of difficult when you're me and you're running 500 things at once.
Yeah.
You know, I've got the podcast, I work for Kaiju Ramen, I got a full-time job, and I've been working on a short film. That's actually something I've been working on as of lately, is filming my most recent short film, which I just revealed the title. It's titled Boxed In. It's a horror short film inspired by the 1980s no-budget horror films. And, like, I've been really happy with it. Last night, I got to film almost the rest of it.
Yeah.
And part of it included me hanging out of my car's backseat window filming at like 3 a.m. as we're driving down a highway at like 50 miles per hour. And these cars are just passing us. And I'm thinking the whole time, I hope to God a cop does not come around this corner and see this. I'm not wearing a seatbelt. It is definitely illegal to have half my body hanging out this door. And we are definitely speeding. So it was a recipe for like a felony or something. I don't know.
You'll be fine.
But it was a ton of fun. And, like, I got some great shots, and my actor was like, you really are happy with these shots? I was like, yes, these are perfect. These are exactly what I wanted. It was just it was great. I loved every second of it. So, I've been working on that, planning All Monsters Attack. I'm going to go for Kaiju Ramen. And I've been planning G-Fest. I might have a panel or two going on. We'll see. I've been working and drafting on that stuff.
Ooh. We'll have to see.
So, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see if anything happens, and hopefully maybe we can get a recording of it or something. But, yeah, no, and then I've been working on the podcast, just trying to get it up to par. The only tokusatsu I've watched that's new is I watched Sion Sono's X-Day hair extensions.
Nice.
I'd like to watch more of his films, ignoring the allegations. I actually just found out that Discotek is releasing Suicide Club to Blu-ray.
Oh yeah, didn't we announce that with like Black RX announcement?
Yes. So now I'm thinking about picking that up. Love Exposure.
Yes.
I'd love for Love and Peace to get picked up. I'm waiting for that announcement.
Bro, you will like love it. You will like Why Don't You Play in Hell, Love and Peace, and I don't doubt you'd enjoy Love Exposure. You'd certainly get some laughs out of Love Exposure.
I'm really excited for Why Don't You Play in Hell. Like, that's probably my most anticipated of his.
It's really good. I love that movie.
But, yeah, and then I feel like I watched another movie, but I don't...
Well, I also watched another movie. It was like this 2005 era Japanese film. You know? We've been covering a lot of 2000s-ish era films recently, I've noticed.
Yeah, we have. We've done we did Devilman, which was 2004, Cutie Honey, which was 2004.
That's two.
That's two. There's two. Is there more?
I looked at the schedule, and our next film is also from the 2000s, crazily enough.
So, like, the next, like, what we're covering now, or, like, what we're going to cover?
What we're going to cover, but I have a creeping suspicion what we're covering today might also be from around the same time period.
Look, man, I'm really tired. You're going to have to help me out here. Like, I'm struggle busing it.
I can tell. Well, what are your thoughts on actor Yukijiro Hotaru?
Oh my god, he's like the greatest like tokusatsu actor in the history of the world. Like,
Agree.
The dude's got the charisma of a god.
He's the funny butler from Garo Gonza. I love him.
We should cover a film he was in. I feel like that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, even if it was a minor role, I think it'd be a lot of fun. I recently watched a film that actually had him in a minor role. And it was from 2005, so 1 year after Cutie Honey. It was called Ashura.
Oh, that movie, yes. With it was directed by Yuji Hayashida, right? Or no.
I don't think it was Hayashida. It was Yojiro Takita.
Yes, and he directed the Onmyuji duology.
He is also an Oscar award winner.
Really? For what film?
Departures. He won Best Foreign Film in 2008.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That I didn't know that.
An
award-winning tokusatsu director.
Yes. Who I believe also got a start through Pink Films, I think.
I believe so.
I mean, hey, I'm not judging. Kaneko started through Pink Films, and we got.
Ridley Scott I mean, not Pink Films, but Ridley Scott also started with pornos and whatnot.
Oh,
So
really? Huh.
yeah.
Well, you know.
So I mean,
He really learned his visual tricks there, didn't he?
Actually, yes. Like on the commentary for Alien, like there's actually a whole conversation about how like how he learned how to like have the camera linger, but like still move, but not disturb what was on screen. Like came from his early years.
Huh. Well, you know.
It was very interesting. But Ashura, no, that's a pretty, I feel like it's a love story too. Like that would be perfect for Valentine's Day in February.
Yeah. Even though Valentine's has passed.
Thankfully. What? I didn't say anything. So, do you think we could cover that? Should we stop and watch the movie?
Well, I've already seen it. I don't know about you.
It's funny because I just looked on my desk and I just had it in my new disk drive.
Whoa.
So I just watched it too.
It's almost like we were fated to cover it.
Yes, it's like
we planned it.
It's like there was the string of.
It's almost like there were some technical difficulties we had with this film as well.
So, with no longer beating around the bush, I feel like this one got extended way too long.
I agree.
We are covering the 2005 film Ashura.
Yes.
It actually was really difficult because Rex has no way of watching this, so we had to figure out how to like get him to watch it. And we'll see if he regrets watching it or not.
Was it worth the trouble?
So Ashura is actually, it's a very long film. It's actually almost 2 hours long, which is, I want to say, the longest film we've covered in a while.
Is it? I mean,
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I guess out of our recent ones, sure, because we usually cover like 90-minute flicks, and the last two like long-ish films we've covered were probably like Shin Ultraman and Godzilla vs. Kong, maybe?
Yeah. But neither of them were 2 hours.
I mean, Shin Ultraman was decently close.
It was, but it was not as close as Ashura, so...
Only by like 5 minutes.
This is true, but 5 minutes means a lot.
Well, maybe for you, I suppose that's true. Actually, no, Devilman was like almost 2 hours, wasn't it?
Dude, that thing was like an eternity. Like, yeah, there's no, like, But Ashura was actually, because, we're talking about its length, it was actually based off of a kabuki stage play.
Yes.
From 1987, which eventually, with plays, like, you couldn't rewatch them. So in 2000, they redid it. And then in 2003, they did it once again because it was such a well-liked play.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was from, what's his name? Kazuki. It was from written by the writer of Kill la Kill, Gurren Lagann, which was some pretty well
Kazuki Nakashima.
Yes, some pretty well-regarded anime. He also was the head writer on Kamen Rider Forze, I believe.
And Double.
He wasn't head writer on that, but he did write that, yes. And some episodes of Max.
And then Junken Sentai Geki Ranger, he worked on that one as well.
Oh, yeah.
And to bring this back to what we were talking about early 2000s, he also was a writer on R.E. Cutie Honey, which was the anime that Anna worked on, which she then partially adapted into the Cutie Honey film.
Pretty sure it was the other way around. Pretty sure. Because I'm pretty sure R.E. Cutie Honey was like either a sequel or like an adaptation of the film in anime form. Because it came out afterwards.
Either way, Anno did something to like they're linked.
Yeah.
Anno did Anno.
Yeah, it was
And
fun
then
as
he
stupid.
also did the script for Takashi Miike's Terraformers from 2016.
Oh, nice.
So he's worked on a decent amount of tokusatsu. And one thing I wanted to point out, as we're talking about like all the connections and links here, I'm just going to go out and say this. The story for Ashura reminded me a lot of Devilman, which makes sense because I actually found out that Nakashima grew up in the 70s when Devilman was like first released, and that was like one of his favorite manga.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So
this is all coming full circle. I swear. This was
only
partially intentional on our end, but some of these are just complete coincidence.
Yeah, like it's weird how like connected the last like 3 or 4 like Ultraman to Devilman, not really connected, but Ultraman to Cutie Honey.
We had a couple actors.
Yeah, we had a couple actors.
And then he was in Cutie Honey again.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly,
so
he wasn't in this one.
Right.
Because that would have been hilarious.
It would have been. But no, between Cutie Honey, Devilman, Shin Ultraman, and Ashura, like somehow we've been able to like connect all of this.
It was very intentional, very, very.
You know, there's one though we weren't able to connect so far this year, and that's Godzilla vs. Kong, but that's because it's absolute garbage.
Good. Keep it away from everything else.
So this just adds to the fact that it's so far detached from Tokusatsu that it shouldn't even be like in the same galaxy, in the same universe. Oh God, people are gonna hate me for hating on GVK every episode.
Oh wow. But speaking of some of the cast and crew, while I was looking into this film, I realized the cast and crew of this movie is pretty well experienced all around.
Yeah. I mean, the main actor, Ichikawa, he was the actor in the play as well. Well, in the 2000s.
Right. The original was an actor named Arata Furuta, who was actually in Zebraman.
Yes, this is true. And I'm pretty sure there was another actor
in this film who was in Zebraman. Atsuro Watabe, whom I know as being the funny priest dad from Love Exposure.
So it's really weird, like Ashura, and I was watching I think it was the making of Ashura, and it was the main actor, let's see, his last name's Ichikawa. How do you pronounce his first name?
I call it Somegoro.
Somegoro? Ichikawa?
Yeah. I mean, he has like a lot of different names, like Matsumoto Koshiro X, and what was his real name? I had it written down somewhere. Teramasu Fujima is his real name.
Okay. I'll just go with Somegoro Ichikawa. He actually was like he talked about how the reason why the film worked so well in production was because of how experienced, especially the director, was in the genre. When I first watched Ashura, it was like right after I'd watched Onmyoji, another film that
is that from the same director?
Yes.
Okay.
Hang on, what? Yojiro. How do you say his last name?
Takeda.
Takeda? Yeah, he directed Onmyoji. Takita?
Yeah.
He directed both Onmyoji and Onmyoji 2.
Okay.
So I'd watched the first one, and then like 2 weeks later I watched Ashura, and I said to myself, and I might have said this to you as well, I was like, they are weirdly similar in style and like direction, and like they're both based in like Edo period Japan and include like yokai and
I think outside of the director, I think there were a couple crew members that also carried over. I don't remember who.
Yes, Yuta Mora.
Morikaji, the action director.
Yes, he did. He worked on Red Shadow, Onmayuji Kashurin, Azumi, the Ryue Kitamura.
Yeah, Battle
film.
Royale as well.
Which was directed by his name
Kinji Fukasaku,
who did like Green Slime, Warning from Space, or not Warning from Space, Message from Space,
Battles Without Honor and Humanity as well.
Virus. So that's pretty cool. And then you had. Let me see here. I have a lot of notes here on these people who worked on.
Oh yeah, I had a couple myself.
It looks like he was the other one that like carried over. Like that was a bigger name, the art director.
Yuji Hayashida.
Oh, not him. Sorry.
Well, he's an experienced art director.
He is, and more than just art. Like he has a huge resume of he has a producer credit and ton of production design credits.
Oh yeah, I mean he won a Japanese Academy Award for art direction in Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins. Also worked on Kitamura's Azumi. Also worked on Kassen, Gamera the Brave, Yadaman, Shin Godzilla, and Shin Ultraman as well. Speaking of Gamera, we got Tomo Haraguchi doing special effects, who was the monster designer for the Heisei Gamera series.
And he directed Kibakichi 1 and 2,
Death Kappa.
He worked on Ring Zero. There we go. Yes. We got Ring in this.
Damn it, you beat me to it.
And he also directed Mika Droid, Robokill Underneath Disco Club Layla from 1991, which was the first film Shinji Higuchi was special effects director on, which he would later go on to do the Gamera films that he worked on. It's all connected.
Well, speaking of connections, we got the costume designed by Dango Takeda, who did Panther Claw in Cutie Honey.
The links just keep coming.
I want to say it's a he, I could be wrong, did costume design for Hokkaido, Mothra Free, Kamen Rider the First, Goro, and various other Kamen Rider features. I noticed Kamen Rider 5's Paradise Lost movie came up, which would have been around the same time as Ashura, and when I saw that, I'm like, yeah, this looks like some of the costume design from that movie.
I mean, obviously, we also have Yokojiro Hotaru, who...
Yes. The legend himself.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't mention how Yuji Hayashida produced Garo Red Requiem.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
You did, apparently, because I was doing research and he had a producer credit and it was on Garo Red Requiem.
Huh. Good movie.
He also worked on Gamera the Brave. I don't know if you mentioned that one.
I did mention that. I did.
Okay.
I wasn't missing that. I love the Brave.
And, I mean, if we want to link it to Godzilla Zero, he also worked on Parasite Part 1 and 2, directed by...
he did.
Takashi Yamazaki, who is working on the new Godzilla movie.
I wonder if Hayashida will be involved.
I was thinking about that. I was like, that might be pretty cool. Hayashida also worked on Love, Death, and Alive, both Kitamura films, along with Aragami. So he's worked with Kitamura a lot as well.
I mean, a decent amount of the crew, from what I could tell, worked with Kitamura at least at some point.
Yeah, to say that this cast and crew wasn't experienced is kind of crazy. Like everybody clearly knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that translates well, we'll talk about.
I'm curious to see what you think.
Likewise,
from the way you're wording this.
I'm trying to keep it ambiguous. But I'm going to kind of try and transition here. We were talking about Kazuki Nakashima, how he was the playwright for the original play.
Mm-hmm. This is our third movie in a row that is an adaptation, by the way, of another media.
Yes, but this is the first play that we have covered. Adaptation of a play. The other two were anime and manga. He wanted to work on the screenplay and story, but he didn't have the time to do both, and he didn't want to go halvesies, so he ended up just leaving the film's writing in the hands of the screenwriter.
Okay.
Which led to the film being different from the play, but also being somewhat true to the original. And the way that director
Yojiro
Takita, yes, thank you. He viewed it as kind of like, because they're two different mediums and they had a difficult time adapting from the stage play to film, which makes sense when you look into. I mean, do you want to get into like the technicalities between stage play and like film?
Sure, feel free to go ahead.
So I have a little bit of experience in stage plays. I worked on a few plays, and I worked with two directors that have done multiple plays, so I talked to them in great detail about this. And I've worked on some short films, and I've talked to directors, and I've basically made my whole life about film, so I can know a lot about the film side as well. The interesting thing about stage plays is it's more self-aware than film. Film does try to play the illusion of this is really happening.
Yeah.
Whereas stage plays are aware, like, you can't do that.
Oh, particularly Kabuki, which is very well known for being very exaggerated.
So it's more stylized. It's more of it's a performance. It's something to go and be entertained by, not immersed in, like a film would be. So, speaking as somebody who has acted in a stage play, you are supposed to be very, because you can't do the subtle, like, emotional things because people won't see that. So you have to be big and bombastic. And a lot of actors who work on stage plays have that difficulty transitioning into film because of that. They can't transition to the subtlety because they are trained to be very exaggerated. Whether it's their projection or their motions or just their reactions. Everything is over-exaggerated, which, interestingly enough, you find in a lot of Japanese films. You find over-exaggerated acting, which is not a flaw, but that is the style. That is what creates Japanese acting, and that goes back to, like you said, Rex, Kabuki plays.
Yeah. I mean, there's over 400 years of history in Kabuki.
And if you trace, even just if we're ignoring the genre, like Japanese cinema in general, if we look at just the genre of Tokusatsu, that goes straight to Kabuki.
Definitely.
You cannot talk about the history of Tokusatsu without addressing Kabuki plays, because Kabuki plays is the birth of that. And we even see kind of an idea of that in Ashura during a sequence where our main character is performing and a giant toad comes busting out of the wall with him writing it, and smoke is billowing from the mouth, and like kabuki is a very important aspect of Japanese theater, whether it's cinematic or stage.
Oh, definitely.
So the team behind Ashura had a difficult time trying to translate that without either being not true to the original or being too true and not being cinematic enough. So that was the hardest challenge they had, especially since they didn't have the original playwriter. But with them working with like Ichikawa, he actually directed the kabuki scenes himself because he is a actor in stage plays. He knew how to do that. Yeah. He was the one that ended up directing those scenes. They wanted to try and find a nice medium, and the way the director ended up going about it was just the idea of, okay, this is the stage play version, and this is how the film version would play with this story. Mm-hmm. And so they came up with the story that ended up being Ashura.
Okay. Do you know in what way specifically this story sort of deviated, or?
I tried to do some research into that. I tried to see if I could locate info about the stage play, but every time I looked up Ashura and like the titles of like what the play was, it just would come up with the film. And I ran out of time to dive too much further into it. The closest I got was finding a way to purchase a live recording of it.
Okay. So I guess we're both in more or less the same situation.
Unfortunately, I wanted to really find out more about the play itself, but...
Oh, well, I mean, for what it's worth, I think compared to something like Devilman, this is an adaptation of a story that actually does make me interested in maybe checking out the kabuki plays.
Mm-hmm. And even in some moments in the film, it definitely feels like a play, which I appreciated.
I mean, I definitely noticed a lot of the, like, some exaggerated visuals, and just direction at certain points.
Right. And it's even structured. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, particularly given, the main actor is a kabuki actor, you can definitely tell. Mm-hmm. And I think that works to his favor, honestly, in the performance.
Absolutely. And it helps. It flows with the story, and that's something I appreciate too, because this film is structured like a play. It is obvious where the intermission is. And this is kind of, I'm going to try and segue here into just talking about it, because this film has a perfectly, like, it's 2 hours long roughly. And at the hour mark is when it establishes Act 2. It's a 2-act movie.
Yeah.
And I could 110% tell when the intermission, in air quotes, was to where the second act started. So if you want to, we can go ahead and just dive in talking about what I would define as Act 1, which is the first hour.
Feel free. Let's go ahead.
So right away, we're pretty much introduced to the world, which the world reminded me a lot of Devilman, which is where I started seeing those connections. And when I learned that the playwright was inspired by Go Nagai, I was like, okay, so this makes sense.
The dots are lining up.
Mm-hmm. We're following demon wardens, is what the English dub calls them.
The subtitles I watched call them that as well.
And they are essentially, they're like a garrison of demon hunters that
That's
go.
fun. Yeah, this part, they reminded me a lot of Devilman, actually, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
They reminded me a lot of like the demon hunting core from Devilman.
Yes. So they go around into towns and ravage it and kill anybody that's a demon.
Or anyone even mildly suspected of it. It's sort of implied.
Immediately, I was like, oh my god, like, this feels like Devilman, but more visually interesting. Because the sets in this are really, really detailed.
Very detailed, yes.
When they were doing the sets, they wanted to go for an Edo look, but they also wanted to, traditionally in most pop culture, Edo is over exaggerated, and they wanted to try and dial that back a bit, kind of show the dirty, dingy side of Edo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's like the Guillermo del Toro situation with Pacific Rim compared to Travis DeKnight's Pacific Rim Uprising. Like, that grunge just adds a level of detail that is just so beautiful. Like, it creates, it immerses you in the world. Like, it feels like this could happen, which for a film that tries to be a little more like a stage play, it helps.
That's actually an interesting comparison. I didn't think of that, but now that you mention it, a lot of the production design, particularly for like some of the sets, like the town sets near the beginning of the film, like the one that the demon wore to raid, kind of does remind me of some Del Toro flicks, like Pacific Rim, but also like his Hellboy films as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So like it helps. The film is already going to have a difficulty creating this reality for its audience because of the style they're going for and the story, but because of that attention to detail in the sets, it's easier to believe that this world exists.
Yeah.
Which I think is a huge win for this film.
Yeah, and here, so we're introduced to the demon wards. We've got the leader, the lieutenant, and then we've got his, what do you call him? His main lackey? The word's escaping me.
The way I view it is like you have the hot dude, the old dude, and the dude that looks like a wolf. Like, that's kind of how I classified them, because his name, I got it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Jaku. He reminds me of like I don't know, it's not the werewolf, but like his hairstyle reminds me of a character I've seen before.
Oh my god, his hairstyle. I was not expecting to see Atsura Watabe wearing that. But oh my god, I love it.
And I love the character, the not the character design, but the costumes and the overall style of most of the human characters, I think looks really good, and I think it fits. It creates such an interesting character, like, set of characters, which goes back to, I think. It goes back to, and when I was watching the bonus features for the making of, they were talking a lot about Casshern, which is another adaptation of I think it was an anime. And and like the year prior, they had adapted it to a live action film, which a lot of those, like the art director for Casshern, Yuji Hayashida, came and did Ashura.
Yeah.
They all had been used to like these really intricate and detailed like costumes and sets and all that stuff. And it really shines through with how each of these characters, I think, are designed. Jaku especially is like a really memorable character for me because of how he looks and how he contrasts to your main character.
Yeah. I mean, coming off the costume designer of Garo, I'd expect no less. Because Garo has some really good costume design. Very memorable characters in that.
You got to show that Garo love somehow, right?
I'm sorry, but it's true, and I think it's relevant here.
It is. It is.
Relevant excuse to talk Garo, and I'll take that any day of a week.
So, through this sequence, we end with our main character going into this temple, and this little girl's like, "Kill me! You're a demon. I'm a demon. Kill me." So he kills her, and he finds out that she was not a demon, she was a human.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of jumps.
Yes, 5 years later.
And so this is where I gotta make a bit of a problem, like a complaint here. I'm not a huge fan of the time usage in this film. I'm not a fan of how time just kind of moves. Sometimes it feels like it jumps. Sometimes it feels like it lasts forever.
I feel here it felt a bit off because at first I wasn't even sure if like that whole like sequence of him being in the demon ward if that was actually meant to be real or if it was a dream.
Right.
Because, like, they say it was a dream, but I guess it's just, like, him recounting the events that actually did happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I eventually figured it out, but it was a bit confusing at first.
Yes. The way the film is written is... It's confusing until you watch the entire... Like, you have to watch the entire thing to fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like, that's not a problem. I'm just not a huge fan of how it flows.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some points it feels like you're moving really fast, especially in the second act. Second acts of plays sometimes move really fast too. But the first act does feel like it moves very slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I felt the pacing in the first act didn't really bother me too much. I sort of was surprised at how slow the movie seemingly was going at a couple points, but like, I don't know. I didn't have too much of an issue with pacing, all things considered.
I think my problem comes from the fact that not a lot happens. Like, if we're going to look at it on the grand scheme of things, not a lot happens in this movie. Like, there is no subplots.
I guess. I mean, there's a little one with, like, the guy who's writing the story about them.
This is true. But even then, his story is mostly just intertwined until the end.
Gotta say, another Ring actor.
Is he?
Yeah, Ring 2. He's the doctor.
Oh.
You know the one that, like, did all the experiments on, like, Yoichi?
Yes.
With the water? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. It all comes back to Ring
too, but I can't remember.
But, it just... I don't know. For me, it felt... It's obvious that it's just focusing on the love story.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really have a problem with that, to be honest.
No. But I definitely have a few jokes I'm going to make once we get to the end here.
I'm curious.
So, we jump 5 years ahead, and now our main character is a kabuki actor. And now we're introduced to our side characters that are just kind of the comedic relief, which is your theater group.
Yeah. Plus Yukijiro Hotaru.
Of course. Which it's hard to see that that's him.
Yeah, I didn't realize it at first until I heard the voice, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I paid attention. I'm like, oh yeah, that is Hotaru.
Mm-hmm. And the only way I could actually tell was the way he acted. Like when he acted a certain way, I was like, "Oh, that's him!" Like that's such a Hotaru thing to do. So we're introduced to the Kabuki thing and our side characters, and then from there we get introduced to the love interest.
Yes.
In a kind of awkward sequence. I don't know, just it feels... I think it's just the character doesn't... It feels weird to me, myself. The main character, the way he's cocky, there's something about it that feels weird to me. I don't know if you...
Yeah, I sort of thought the main character was a bit weird at times. I think the performance by Ichikawa is good, but it's just like the writing of the character is a bit strange.
Yes. It's just it's uncanny.
Maybe that comes down to the Kabuki source material. I don't know, but for the purposes of a film, it felt a bit out of place. Also, was that woman he was with at the beginning his wife? Or was that just like his assistant?
I don't know. I mean, it's obvious that she's no longer relevant by the end.
Yeah. She's there at the beginning and just disappears.
Yeah. I also wanted to point out, I skipped over some of my points here. So at the beginning, we're also introduced to one of the main sets in the film, which is the entryway to the Demon Bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Which, have you seen Qui-Gon?
No, I have not.
Okay. So that set specifically for the bridge is very similar to the part of Qui-Gon where it is the musician who is taken to the supernatural world to perform for a dead family.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool to see that, and I loved seeing that. I do wonder. I noticed that there was some influence by a Kaidan story. I'm curious if they did take any influence from Qui-Gon in the designing or the sets of Ashura, because Qui-Gon itself is also a film that's very much like a kabuki play. It at moments feels like a stage play. I also, when we talked about the Demon Wardens thing, I probably should have brought up that the CGI looks awful.
Yeah, particularly in this scene, I think it was most distracting since it's kind of presented before like the practical gore effects show up.
So the CGI on the demons is their eyes are green and like they have green teeth. It's like Zebraman levels bad green.
Yeah.
Like it's ugly. And the deaths are horrible too with the green blood that's CGI.
It looked fine when it was like practical blood, like later on in the sequence, but the CG blood was a bit of a no.
Yeah. And I was it just me, or was the pacing, like the fast-paced fight choreography, it looked weird to me in that opening?
I don't know. I was a bit distracted by, I think, some of the interlacing of the video, where I'm like, the frame rate here looks a bit weird. But that's probably just the DVD's fault more than the actual film itself, I think.
Okay. That would explain that, because I was like, this looks really weird.
Because I noticed that in a couple of the fights. And when I was looking back, I noticed that it's just interlaced. So I'm not an expert, but I'm going to make the guess that might have something to do with it.
Gotcha. So after the fight, we're getting back into where we are, meeting the love interest with our main character and the hairpin.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I just realized I completely skipped over, like, the way she's introduced. Like, she's like this...
She's a ninja.
She's like a Robin Hood. Like, it's established that they steal, but it's only when it's warranted.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they're like a Japanese ninja Robin Hood.
Yeah, and then you get cameos from a Japanese acrobatics group called the G Rockets.
Mm-hmm. And then more demons happen. They're chasing our love interest. Right?
No, wasn't it the townsfolk chasing her? And then at the end it was the demon? Oh, yeah, actually.
Yes. My train of thought just died.
Goofy art, Elijah, I swear. So where are we? The demons. And then she first meets, what's his name? Jaku in this sequence.
Oh, I wanted to point something out. I'm pretty sure all of the nighttime sequences
are day for night,
and it does not work. It looks awful.
Yeah, I definitely noticed it here. Wasn't always the worst. I was more distracted by some of the green screening than the actual day for night. So
there's a lot of compositing issues with this film.
Yeah, particularly at the beginning of the film, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think
it gets a little better near the end, but
I would agree with that. But part of it too is at the beginning, especially, they were utilizing 4 composites. They had the matte painting, the humans under motion capture, the miniature sets, and then a masking layer.
Okay, it was the miniatures. I'm not crazy.
Yes, they built miniature sets.
Because I thought the way it was framed looked like miniatures, and I thought they were composited in. I'm not crazy. Good.
In the visual effects bonus feature I watched, they had a section about how they talked about using 4 composites to create the atmosphere, and then he talked about how they had to, like, put a mask over specifically the sequence where this is shortly after Jaku meets our love interest. It's when our main character and our love interest are talking at the lighthouse.
Yeah.
That was a day for night shot. So what they had to do is they had to put a mask over the actors' faces, both of them, to, like, flatten out the textures. They also had to do that with the mountains and the coastline. So, like, there was a lot of masking going on trying to alter the day for night.
Yeah.
And it just it makes it look weird.
Yeah.
There was a lot of masking going on, and the masking did not work.
Yeah. To be fair, for 2005, it's not the worst I've seen. This isn't Devilman. So, for a frame of reference, a recent frame of reference that, you know, as long as you're not Devilman, fine, I'm not going to harp on you. As long as you're not Devilman bad, then I'm not going to harp on it too much.
I'm going to complain whenever I want to complain.
Well, you're just pedantic.
I am. But to not be pedantic, I love the director and the screenwriter dude. Like, I just love his whole thing. He is my favorite character out of all of
them. Yes.
How he tells his apprentices to go get eaten by demons so he can write about it.
Yeah.
And he's a bit of a creepy person, but I'm also like, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta do what you gotta do to get the shot.
I feel like you were going to say something else there, but anyways.
No, I was going to bring up something I recently did. but I don't think it would be appropriate to bring it up.
Hold up.
You know what I did.
But the audience doesn't.
Yes, but I don't know, like, if I should...
So for all they know, you could be doing exactly what Nobuyuki was doing.
It wasn't exactly that.
What do you mean by exactly?
Well, there was clothes missing. But it's okay, because it wasn't anybody else. So, for context,
No more context.
No. Now I gotta save myself before everybody freaks out.
No more context, because it's funnier to leave it without context.
No. I don't want to get messages like, "What are you doing?"
I don't care. You're going to get those messages, and it's going to be funny.
No. So, you know, I vibe with the whole you got to do what you got to do to get the shot, get the story. That's like some like sitcom level stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but you got to do it for the film. FTF.
Yeah, no, he was a funny character. I love that bit you mentioned of him just like telling his lackeys, go get eaten by demons.
And then he would tell, and I love the fact that they included the fact that it used to be in kabuki plays you couldn't have females on stage.
Yeah.
I loved the fact that the character just wore female clothing the entire time because they played the female character.
Helps that they were Yukijiro Hotaru, to be fair.
Absolutely. It was perfect. And like how the director would almost tell them to go get eaten or like go deal with demons, and then at least in the dub it was, no, they would spit me right back out. Like, no, I'm a waste of time.
Damn, they didn't have that banter in the sub version I watched, unfortunately.
There was a lot of banter and like comedic aspects that I feel like were in the dub that were not in the subs. From the dub, it was more of a comedy with a lot of like ad-libbing.
I'll say from the few clips I listened to the dubs, it seemed quite comical.
And I'm sure the original is not that way.
Yeah, there's comedy elements in it, but they're mostly left to like Yukijiro Hotaru and like those like the writer and his assistants.
Because
almost
they're
entirely
they're clearly the comedic relief of the film.
Oh yeah.
Like even watching dubbed and like it being very comedic throughout, I could tell that those were supposed to be your comedic characters. You're like R2-D2 and C-3PO of the film.
I mean, Ichikawa's character, Izumo, was also occasionally a bit comedic too, to be fair.
And that goes back to the whole writing thing that we were talking about, how like his... I don't know, I think it's just his character is so serious. But
also almost... There's like this just contrast between him in certain scenes.
Right.
He's very hot-headed at certain points.
I would agree with that. And for a hero, traditionally you don't have somebody that like cocky.
Yeah.
Like they can be a little cocky. Like look at like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. But like his character always seemed like he was the top dog. Like he never was like concerned. Yeah. Granted, that's partly due to plot convenience, but I digress.
Oh, wow.
I like the way I kind of write off plot convenience at this point is I was watching a Cinema Sins like Sins video, and Cinema Sins was like the fact that this happened at this time and exactly at this moment for these people to do this, like, what are the odds of that? Like, that is a 0.00001% chance. So how did that happen? Mm-hmm. And the rebuttal to that was, this is a movie. This is what would happen if that did happen. You just completely missed the point of cinema.
Yeah.
So now I don't necessarily complain about plot convenience nearly as much because of that, because that is very true. It's
mm-hmm. I think there's room to complain for it at certain points. Like, if a film's being overly contrived and it doesn't fit with the film, because, like, something like Love Exposure, for example, is like, this would never happen in real life. This is the most insane series of events. This is the most insane love story you're ever going to encounter. But, like, it's so interesting. You wouldn't want it any other way.
Right. It helps add a level of theatrical pizzazz. Like, it adds a level of... What's the term I'm looking for here?
Style?
Yes, a type. It adds style, and it adds a uniqueness to it that you couldn't find in, like, real life. And part of cinema is immersing yourself in a world that you can believe exists. So the fact that these things happen, you can believe.
Yeah.
One thing that I was not surprised that I could believe was the turn of Jakku killing the older demon warden and turning to the dark side. Like, I saw that coming 100 million miles away.
I mean, the costume design alone kind of implied that.
Yes, and we haven't talked about much of the costumes, like, for the demons that appear with our villain character or any of the demon wardens, but I like them until it's a close-up shot.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, I think they look good in most of it, but, like, the demons that are accompanying our main villain character...
Oh, what, like the ogres?
Yes. Like, they look cool until you get a close-up. And then when you get the close-up, it's like...
I don't care for the face makeup. I think the rest of the costume looks fine. It's just the face makeup that I'm not a fan of.
I agree.
Also, low-key blackface.
Damn.
I mean, it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how to react to that. Getting it back on track here. So the story develops into Jakku wanting to find Ashura and become, like, the most powerful person on the planet, essentially. Yeah. So Jakku starts hunting down the love interest. We're introduced to the fact that our main character, he has been playing an act the whole time. He does remember everything. It just haunts him.
Mm-hmm.
I did think it was a little weird how everybody just kind of went along with it.
I thought it was funny.
Like, I mean, it's funny, it's comedic, but it's also like, oh, I guess we're not going to address the elephant in the room. All right. So then the story kind of becomes this. It becomes this, and as quickly as it becomes this, it kind of goes away. The hunt for the love interest, Jakku ends up finding her. So does the main character.
Yeah.
And they get taken to the evil lair, which at this point the film kind of turns from me because the evil lair looks awful. It is all, like, metal, but it looks like a lower budget, like, Tokusatsu show. And the first meeting entirely is awkward. I don't know. It feels awkward. It's the end of the first act.
I think most of, like, the establishment of the love between Ashura and Izumo is a bit odd.
Awkward.
It's fine later on. It's just that those sort of beginning bits.
Yes. At first it's creepy, and then it gets
Yeah.
awkward.
The only one I was sort of like kind of fine with was like probably the one like when she goes to the actual play area that he's like practicing in, because I thought that bit was funny. Plus it's got a decent bit of tension with Jakku and the other soldiers chasing her.
Yes, I would agree with that. That in the end. At the end, I think it makes sense. But
yeah,
the whole interaction with the villains and the heroes is, I don't know, it felt weird. It was obvious the conclusion of the first act getting us into the second act. Which, I don't know, it didn't feel right. There was something about it that was either not like climactic enough, or it was too late in the film, or it was too early. It just, nothing paid off except for the fact that the love interest and our main character ended up getting together. But even then it was kind of forced, because you're like, find them a place. And like, it's weird. It's weird. They're put into the situation where like, that's clearly the thing everybody's planning on happening. Am I being too vague?
I don't know. I somewhat agree with you. I somewhat don't. I don't know. I didn't really have. I agree with like the awkwardness, but I don't know. I don't know how to really respond to that, honestly.
I don't know. Just leading into the love scene, it just, I don't know. Something about it just didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was the fight with Jakku just felt it feels like it's the climax.
Yeah.
But it ends up not being.
It ends. I'll agree. The end to that was a bit like, oh, okay.
Yes.
I mean, especially with like Nobuyuki just showing up for like, what was it? Just because he wanted to see how the story would end and all that.
Yes.
I'm like, that was probably like, I'm like, okay, that's a bit contrived.
Yeah. It feels like it should have been the beginning of the end, but it's not. It's the end of Act 1, which is how I realized that it's a 2-act story.
Yeah.
Because it's the climax of the first act. It has no resolution, though, because it's the first act. But in film form, that feels a lot different. It concludes with the love scene, and then following that is a lead-in into the second act, which is her repeating, what is it she repeats?
What, the vision, or like the song not the song, the thing she was saying before when she was a child?
So whenever the climax of the love scene happens, she starts chanting something.
Yeah.
And like, what was it she was saying? I'm trying to remember. Like, I heard it 100.
Spirits awaken within.
Yes.
Swallowing the world and all that.
So that's the beginning of the second act, which is solely about our main character getting to her and saving her from being taken by Ashura. Like, that's the whole second act. And there's never a moment where it speeds up. It stays the same pace the entire time.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's why it ends up being so awkward for me, is the pace of this film never changes. After the beginning, it does not alter.
I don't know. I remember at certain points I would look during this like second act, I would look at the runtime and it'd be one time, and then like it'd feel like, oh, good, has a good 20 minutes gone by? No, it's only been 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember noticing that a couple of times and being surprised. I don't know if I want to complain about that necessarily, but just an anecdote.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's, and I don't know if it's a complaint or if it's just an observation for like why it feels weird to me because of that aspect. The fact that it does feel like it doesn't alter its pace for better or for worse.
I mean, perhaps that could also come from the fact that you and I are not particularly experienced in, like, say, watching, like, say, kabuki plays and 2-act structured, stories like this.
Right.
Could come down to that, honestly. So maybe,
it very well could.
Maybe that, because I feel like the pacing of the film will be dictated largely from, the source material, which is intended on being a stage play as well.
Correct.
I mean, Devilman was certainly affected by the fact that its story was a manga and it was trying to condense all that into 2 hours. So,
right.
Yeah, from here, it's where Izumo and Tsubaki, the love interest, realize that they've been calling themselves opposites, but there's a little bit more to that than they realized before. Finding it that Tsubaki was the little girl that Izumo had killed.
Correct. And then that's when the whole story kind of goes full circle, and I feel like we start to enter the epilogue of, like, the story. Like, obviously it's the conclusion. Like, it's now that we know what the story is, we're... Because after that, she goes to the upside-down castle.
Yeah.
Ashura takes over. Jakku is killed, which I felt was kind of pitiful. I felt
his
like that.
death in this scene was anticlimactic.
I was like, oh, no, he's dead. Cool.
God damn it, I wanted more Atsura Watabe.
Yeah.
But luckily he comes back.
Yes. So then, she goes on the castle. All your villains go to the castle. Your main character is, like, beaten, but then he, like, powers up. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, at one point he's, like, struggling to stand, and then he's like, I'm good. I'm good. Like, can you explain that? Like, I don't know.
He'll be fine.
It just happens.
Just walk it off.
So then our director comes in, and he's like, we gotta go up there, and I'm gonna follow you. And then our main character's like, no, this is between me and her. And this is where it becomes a Titanic-level love story. Like, this is, like, the perfect Valentine's Day tokusatsu film. So then our main character goes to the castle. We get some amazing crane shots. There's some beautiful crane shots in this movie.
Oh yeah, and I think some of the visuals when he's entering the castle are really interesting too.
Yes.
Like that whole, like, I don't know how do you describe it? Like, there's all the stairs. Some of them
very
are upside
labyrinth.
down. Yeah. Like, all that sequence, I thought that was really cool.
And the fight and the camera work there was really, really interesting.
Yeah, like, it's a type of, like, location I've seen before, but typically you don't see it shot as well, I find. This was actually shot pretty well.
It's obvious that they were trying to do something
interesting.
Visually interesting, yes. Whereas I think traditionally with your labyrinth-esque, like, staircase system, it's like a still camera, and, like, people are just walking and they just so happen to, like, be upside down or sideways or right side up or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes those types of locations are also just limited by the budgets of their films.
Correct.
Hellraiser 2 getting its budget slashed by the death of New Line Cinema.
So, then it becomes like this journey of our main character just fighting his way to get to his true love.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get kind of a subversion of expectations. The main character fights Jakku. Jakku is about to win when Ashura now makes it so our main character wins. She basically alters the game so that our main character can slice both the main demon villain and Jakku.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. I didn't have really much of an opinion. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what we're doing. But it did lead into probably the best part of this film for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the final fight. So after we find out that the whole reason for it was so Jakku and the demon lady could die together, then our main character goes searching for Ashura,
Mm-hmm.
finds her in her, chambers, I guess. I guess that's what you would call it. Ito is on fire, the world's burning, and it's a love story of burning passion.
Mm.
And from there we get a very theatrical fight between Ashura and our main character.
Mm-hmm. Once again, with excellent costume design. This was definitely from the guy who did the Fives movie. You'd have to see the dresses in that. I'll have to show you a picture.
It kind of reminded me of Hikaider a little bit, with how Hikaider and oh god, what's his name?
Michael,
yes, and how Michael were, and the whole the room they were in, especially.
Yeah,
it kind of reminded me of that final Hikaider fight.
Mm.
And then it was very theatrical with how they were moving, even how it was framed a bit.
Are we talking about Ashura or Hikaider? Sorry,
Ashura.
Okay.
Hikaider too, a little bit, with kind of the stationary wide angles of
and all the red walls.
Yeah. It was a very theatrical final fight, I thought, and I appreciated that. I thought that was really cool to have.
Mm.
Almost it almost felt like they were dancing in a way.
Yeah.
It was a very well choreographed fight.
Mm.
For lack of a better term, I'm just going to say it was a very beautiful fight.
I'm sure that was the intention, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It would fall into the whole idea of it being two people who love each other so dearly.
Bound by fate.
And this is where in my notes I wrote the Twilight of Tokusatsu. I was like, this is a love story better than Twilight. This is... Ashura should become everybody's movie about love.
If it was easier to get a hold of.
Yeah. So, at the end of the fight, they both die. And we cut to our director writing the story and a demon's helping him with the story. And I think the final... I'm pretty sure the final things said in the film are basically their love was eternity.
Yeah, their love was eternal.
So they're they will forever be bound no matter where they are.
Mm.
And that's the end of the film. And then we get a nice jazz song at the end that solidifies this as the perfect tokusatsu film to watch on Valentine's Day.
Yes, it's even called Funny Valentines.
So, I don't know. It seems like you don't have really any strong opinions on this.
No, I actually quite enjoyed this film. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I was very concerned if it was actually going to be worth all this trouble, but it may not be quite as pleasant of a surprise as, say, Snake Girl and the Silverhaired Witch, but I still enjoyed this a fair bit.
Yeah, it's definitely not a film that I think stands out. In the grand scheme of like the tokusatsu I've watched, I don't set Ashura as.
I don't think it's like one of the standout examples of tokusatsu. I'll agree there. It's not some amazing film, but it's not one that I wouldn't recommend, I'd say. It's one that I enjoy.
Yeah. So, like, for me, watching it now, I understood, like, the kabuki part, a little bit of the yokai stuff. Now that I've watched a little more tokusatsu, especially stuff that's a little more like Ashura, to me, like, I understood it a little bit better.
Yeah.
I understood the context. But I also liked the other films I've watched a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't mind Ashura. I feel like it's a decent film. I feel like to me, it's a pretty middle of the road. There's not a ton of good stuff, but there's not a ton of bad stuff. It's a decent film.
I don't know. I enjoyed it for what it was.
But it definitely feels like it's a little too long. I feel like I'm saying that a lot. Like, it's just...
You see, I wouldn't... I feel like it's... I'll agree it has pacing issues, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know what I'd really cut from the film.
Yes. That is the issue. I don't know, maybe they could speed it up?
Maybe. Like, I guess maybe you could, like, trim, like, a little bit of the scenes, but, like, I don't know.
Because I agree with you, like, everything feels required to understand the grand story.
Yeah, there's not much filler in this, if any, really. So yeah, I don't know. I somewhat agree with you. I somewhat don't. There.
Yeah.
Have we covered everything on the film yet, or?
I feel like, I don't know. It feels weird. I feel like we haven't covered everything.
I mean, to be fair, we have come off just like some really long episodes previously.
This is true.
So maybe we're just not used to,
having a 2-hour recording.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
The editor in me doesn't mind.
Yeah. Was there anything like that you haven't mentioned? I feel like I've been talking a lot. So like,
I don't know.
If there's anything.
Again, I liked the film. I didn't have I don't know. I don't know if I have a lot to say really about it. It's kind of one of those films that I watch. I like it. Maybe I'll watch it again. Maybe I won't. We'll have to just wait and see, I suppose. I don't know.
I honestly, like, I feel like it is one of those films that I've watched it. Maybe if I want to get a point across that it's the Twilight of Tokusatsu, like, I might watch it again, but besides that, I don't see myself watching it again.
I don't know. I don't know. I will say, what happened to that really complex sort of, like, hat thing Ashura was wearing on the poster that's not in the film? Because that looked really cool.
Great question. I don't know.
Because I saw that, I'm like, that looks awesome. And I thought it was going to show up during the finale, and then it didn't. I don't know.
Now,
maybe it's in that 2015 remake.
Maybe. One thing I will say, though, I did like the whole meta thing of, like, it was written as a playwright.
Yeah.
And then, it's adapted from a play. So, like, the idea that it was a true story that somebody wrote and it turned into a play.
Yeah, and then the main actor is a kabuki actor playing a character who was a kabuki actor.
Yeah, I like that's pretty cool. I like it when films do stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I just it exists.
It's neat.
It's
not something I wouldn't recommend. Like, if someone like happened to mention it, I'd be like, yeah, check it out.
Mm-hmm. But I don't want to go too far into other films because I think we have a valid reason to cover all the other films that we've mentioned. But some of the other films that these people have worked on, I would want to go back and watch more so than this one.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've got a very experienced crew coming off like Heisei Gamera, Battle Royale, which is one of the most well-known Japanese films internationally. We've got Kaida, various rider shows, Garo, Shin Ultraman, etc. Frankly, the only thing here where I'm like, yeah, I'd recommend Ashura over this is probably like Rebirth of Mothra 3.
Well, that's because it's Rebirth of Mothra, so
yeah, that's an interesting trilogy. That'll be an interesting. Those will be interesting episodes.
Yes, if we ever get to those.
Someday.
Someday.
Well, hey, I'll be fine if we skip 2.
We can't. We can't skip 2.
I know, but I'll be fine if we did.
Oh, I see. So, yeah, I mean, I don't... I feel like I've said all I can say. I really do. I feel like this is an episode where we haven't gone too deep into it, but there's also not, like, I feel like a lot
there's
of
not
this...
as much to go as deep in, especially with, like, not having much access to, say, the original story it's based on as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that comes to play a bit here.
I agree, and at least for me, a lot of what I had to say was about the style.
Yeah. I mean, like the style is probably the most noteworthy aspect of the film.
This is a film where it's more style over substance.
Yeah.
Which I feel like a lot of our past films have been more substance than style because they couldn't do style.
I think Cutie Honey had a decent bit of style, I'd say, in it.
It had Ono. It was the Ono-isms.
Yeah, it's still a style.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You seem like you don't want to give it that credit.
I don't. Ono shouldn't get credit for anything.
Okay, Mr. Ono hater. Okay, whatever. Whatever you say.
And I think the sole reason why, like, I feel that way about Ashura is just I found the style more interesting than anything the story had to present to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, honestly.
Like, I'm not much for a love story. There is a few tokusatsu films that have a love story that I will rant and rave about. And I can't wait to cover those, but...
For me, it depends on the love story. Because I like a good love story. It's just that not a lot of them are good enough to get me invested, And to this film's credit, I think this one had a decent love story. I think I got invested enough to actually care to see it to the end,
I didn't not care. Like, I did care. And that's something I don't... It's not like one of those movies where I'm like, oh my god, I wish that one of these people would just get hit by a bus so they could never live happily ever after. Like, this is awful.
I mean, Atsuro Watabe also made it very worth it for me, given he is having the time of his goddamn life.
Yeah.
Especially in that scene where he's slaughtering demons.
Yeah. So, it's a fun movie in certain scenes, and it's got enough substance to keep you invested.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really all I can say.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I really have anything else to say. I feel like it'd just be me reiterating the same points I've already made.
Yeah. So, if you want to, we can go ahead and wrap things up here for this one.
Alrighty.
Next episode, let me think here, is going to be... Wait, it is linked. Our next episode's linked to this one, too.
Oh.
Huh. Well then, stay tuned for the next episode that is somehow still linked to Ashura, which is linked to all of the other films we've covered this year besides Godzilla vs. Kong.
How do we keep this chain going?
I honestly don't, I didn't put this much thought into this. We just did something that looked good. But after this next one, I think it's going to be a little different. I think.
The next film is certainly an interesting one.
Yes.
Oh boy, it's also one that I've never seen before.
Oh, let's go. You're just learning all the new Tokusatsu this year.
Well, with the current schedule, yeah, I will be. A lot of what we've got I haven't seen before.
Well, that's good. We'll have one fresh pair of eyes, one seasoned pair of eyes.
Yes.
Well, with that, we can go ahead and wrap things up here.
Alrighty.
Rex, why don't you let the people know where they can find you at?
Well, as you already know, I am Rex. You can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, and on Instagram, Rex_Xeno. If you want to check out my writing, also go check out the Tokusatsu Network.
And as for me, you can find me on Twitter at ET13 Productions, on Instagram at ET13 Productions, or on YouTube at ET13 Productions, where I will be posting. Right now I'm working on some projects. My short film is one of them. I also write for Kaiju Ramen Media. Let's see, the next issue is going to be issue 8, where I did an interview with somebody. And I might have worked on more than just an interview for that issue. So definitely give that a check out. And yeah, so you can find me there, or you can find my personals if you want to. I'm not going to tell you where to find those, but it's not that difficult. I'm not private. And if you want to support the podcast, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. We were review bombed a while back, and we haven't really bounced back from that. So if you guys could leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. I feel like we're a little better than 3.1, just personally. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't, kind of not really anymore. I'm using a MacBook Pro for the podcast. Anyway, you can tweet us and follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook with the same @handles. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you, you can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. And another way you can review us is go to Spotify and leave us a review that way. That is a new feature they added, so definitely go and give us a review there if possible. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually we'll do something special with it. But you can sport our awesome logo if you want to. At least one of our logos. There's like 2 or 3 there. If you'd like to chat with us one-on-one, or chat with people that share interests like you, you can join our Discord server. Let me see here what the most recent conversation was. I saw a notification, but I'm going to just double check and see if my notifications are wrong. So it looks like the last conversation that really was discussed was how Yokojiro Hotaru is the greatest tokusatsu actor that ever lived.
Because it's true.
It is true. It is very true. But it's a great community full of great people, a lot of great conversations there. And if you want to, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video, or go live now. We just did our first live stream on the YouTube channel, where me and Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project just chilled for about 5 hours and just talked about whatever was on our minds. It actually went over pretty well, and we're going to try and do them monthly. We're going to try and do a monthly live stream, and of course all of our episodes will be posted there. Bloopers go there, and other minisodes will go there. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer Jared Kurchevsky, probably butchered his name, on the channel as well. A huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes. He does a great job and he works really hard. As mentioned, his links can be found in the description below.
Yes, check them out.
Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his vocals on our theme song, the Kaiju Conversation theme song, and Gratton Conwell from Giant Monster BS, the podcast, for composing the music for our theme song. Their links can be found in the description below. Please support them. And with that, I think that wraps things up here, so we can go ahead and move on to the next film and the next topic. So thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. Kaiju, not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.